Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Caregiver podcast. It's Kathy Vanden Heuvel here. Can you believe it is February already, or closing out February, the end of February? I really enjoyed talking about this month's series that we talked about on self care. We did three prior to this one. So, this is the fourth one on self care. And really, self care is personal for each of us based on our needs. And we have to figure out what works best for us as caregivers right now and the things that will boost our mood, improve our energy, and reduce our stress, especially in the current situations. And so in episode 147, we started out the month talking about self love and self-love, and it starts with self-worth. And it was all about embracing our thoughts and our feelings. And so go back to episode 147. I'll have it in the show notes as well. And then the second week of February, in episode 147, we took self care and we dug into the whole concept of self compassion and how it buffers us from this caregiver burnout. And really, it's all about cutting yourself some slack and granting yourself some grace and really being kind to yourself. And then last week, we talked about self love in episode 149. And the whole concept of why it is so challenging as a caregiver to give yourself love first and put yourself first. And you have to learn how to do this. And when you are giving so much of yourself right now, it feels you may feel guilty or shame for doing that. And on the flip side, it's so very, very necessary. And in order for you to be at your best, you have to love yourself first. So today we are diving into the last of the series, this fourth episode in February, and we're diving into the part of self-care that I feel is the anchor. It's all about your beliefs and who you are and your purpose, which equal your values, your personal and your core values. Once we understand all of these four parts, then you can really then create your personal path and in this caregiving season. So let's dig into the values piece. And I'm recording this also on YouTube. So, YouTubers, you're going to go ahead and get some prompts that come up on your screen. And you're going to also see me digging into my notes and really going ahead and making sure I cover every piece. Everyone has things that are important to them, right? It may be starting out with your morning cup of coffee. You can't survive without that, or going for a walk after dinner, or spending time with friends or family, or maybe even volunteering. The things that are important to you give you a clue then of what your core values are in life. That maybe bring you joy or light you up or make you feel amazing or warm. I said warm, and they all equal your purpose. And when I started my caregiving journey back in 2017, after about a year, I started realizing that I continued to want to pursue my passions and goals along with caregiving. I've been this type of person where no matter if I held a full time job and I was a mom, there was always room for me to do something else that lit me up and gave me my own separate identity. I would volunteer for the PTA. I was even a scheduler for my son's hockey organization. I ran marathons as the kids got older. I I did things that would light me up. Uh, I did direct sales businesses at the side. I wanted to continue to keep growing and developing. So then when became a caregiver, I realized that after about a year, this journey that I was in, I felt a passion and a purpose to go ahead and start a podcast and start sharing my stories and my experiences and my mistakes and the stress and all of that kind of stuff so I could help others. And so in 2020 I started that. And I feel like that's part of my core values and being able to see what lights me up and makes me feel good. So, the podcast today is all about how do your core values affect your caregiving, and how do you go ahead and use those core values to the best of your abilities. And so, what are core values? And if you're working for an organization or a company, they probably have their own set of values and things that you have to abide by. But I'm talking about you. Your core values are are a testament to your true self because they are what matters most to you when it comes to your personal and professional life, but also now in your caregiving life. Your values influence that little voice inside of you that tells you whether or not to care about something or how you should prioritize your time or how you feel about something. Your values are things that you believe are the most important things that you live and work and care for in your life. They help determine what you truly want out of your life while simultaneously acting as the measuring stick that tells you if you're satisfied with your current situation and living in a meaningful way. So that's really deep, but I I think when you think about it, you think about core values define who you are while you find your purpose. They tell you your beliefs and your overall purpose. And you might be feeling your values when you're working a job, or you might feel the opposite, that they're not who you are. But now that you're caring for a loved one, y- they are who you are. And so there's going to be things that you feel good about when you're caregiving, and then some things that are fighting with you internally when it comes to caregiving. And we're going to talk about these. But think about your core values, and I'll have an activity later for you to think and try to spark some ideas. But here are just some thoughts on, or some core values that companies, personal people I might rely on, or you might rely on as your core value. Reliability. Maybe you're loyal or committed. Maybe teamwork is a core value, or socialization. Caring or compassion. Maybe you're adventurous or creative and that just lights you up. Maybe communication is your thing. Maybe you're a good listener or you're a good speaker. Maybe you value diversity and uniqueness and adaptability. Maybe it's humility, and I can never say that word, by the way. Maybe it's family, well being. Maybe it's courage or confidence or personal growth. Those are just a few. Some of these values that you personally have are instilled in you from childhood, or they can be cultural things that you've had to go ahead and that's part of your culture or your religion, or they're learned through watching a family member or a teacher, or hearing discussions about things that you're passionate about. Perhaps now in your adulthood, you realize you're passionate about those same things. It's not a bad thing to share your core values with those around you, but it can also be detrimental to live a life that doesn't honor your core values once you've identified them as well. So I want to give you an example here. As a child, my dad was very military. He was very organized and detailed and disciplined, and really, and my mom was a go-getter. She was a high achiever, and I had a strong work ethic based on the way they brought me up. It involved commitment and dedication and discipline and responsibility. As a matter of fact, I took like the strengths finder test, and I was a high achiever and discipline and focus and consistency and all those things, and that was instilled in me. I'm truly grateful for that. It gives me passion to keep pursuing and pushing and finding joy in getting tasks done and helping others. I've learned though that it causes a lot of pressure and stress and anxiety that I put on my own self when I try to go ahead and do that. I just don't have a few things to do each day. I create this big long list, and I am dedicated to getting it all done. And when I don't, I let myself down. So I want you to think about your core values and how do your core values affect your caregiver life, your caregiver daily decisions. And it's really fun because my light bulb while I was writing these notes came on when it came to my values, and it brought me a whole different thought process involved in it. So I'm thinking it's going to happen for you too. So you make decisions based off of your values every single day, but sometimes you forget about the important decisions you face, big or small, and the potential stress that your choices can create, like my to-do list might be one. And I'll give you some other examples later. When you identify your own values and make choices that align with them, life can suddenly become easier. But when you're running on autopilot or not allowing your values to coincide with your choices, you can find yourself becoming incredibly unhappy and maybe you don't know why. And this year, I retired from my corporate job, but for about a year before I retired this past January, everything in me as my values were changing and my purpose and passions were changing in life and who I was now in 2022, it was fighting against what I was doing in my corporate job and my corporate world. And so I felt my identity changing and I felt myself being on autopilot and fighting against me. You may feel the same thing when it comes to caregiving because some of your core values don't align now with you being a caregiver. So your values should or may reinforce your purpose and your roles in caregiving. I shouldn't say should. I should say may reinforce your purpose and goals in caregiving. And let me give you some examples before we get into the opposite. If your core value is loyalty or commitment or service to others, well, then you should feel fulfilled right now, meaning you adhere to the schedule and you're there for your loved one and really I'm trying to think of the word, you find joy and gratification. That's what it is in caring for your loved one. If your value is more of the communication and the organized and the efficiency side, well, there's a piece in caregiving that you can excel at, and that's the advocacy side. And and you can feel a sense of purpose there by keeping everything organized and scheduled and asking good questions and being a really good communicator. If you value community and teamwork and family and feeding off of that, then you'll feel a need to pull people together and work together to take care of your loved one. Or the flip side of the coin is you might feel lonely because now you're isolated as well. And let me kind of build back into the example that I gave on the work ethic. So, let me share the good side first. With my high work ethic, I lean into my mindset and drive to figure out the caregiving jobs that I've had in the last 5.5 years. I used my dad's thought process of pulling your sleeves up and getting your hands dirty. That was always his little thing here. When I was in care mode or advocate mode, I gave it my all, no matter what I thought about it. And being military, my dad would like, things are not going to be everything that you want them to be. You just go ahead and get your hands dirty and do what you have to do and get it done. Right. And so that helped me from a good perspective. When I had a goal, I figured it out. And that has been done. And I map out a plan. One of the things that I was really good at when I was in my corporate job, and I'm still good at it to this day, is we would sit at a conference table and we would talk about rolling out this new event or this new program or whatever it would be. And I would sit in there with my expertise and skill set and listening to everything that has to be done. And in my head and visually, I could map out everything that has to be done in chunks and see. I could see the tasks, I could see the descriptions, I could see the due dates, I could see the levels that it would be at. I have this project manager mindset that makes it very easy for me. And so as people learn that about me, they'd pull me in and I would be able to go ahead and pull everything out of them, put it on a document, and we would be able to start working and finding the players to work off of it. That was easy for me. That was really easy, based on my core values and work ethic. But on the flip side, with a high work ethic, this is where I struggled in the caregiving world and even in today's world. I expect the same from others. Sometimes my expectations are very, very unrealistic. If a doctor, like Dennis, my husband, the doctor would say, well, 3 months, things aren't changing. So we're just going to wait and see what 3 months comes from next time. I would struggle with that because there was no action being taken. There was no research being done. What does that mean? And I would have to control my emotions and ask really good questions. And even with caregiving, if you pull in your siblings or family members or other support people, and they don't do things at the same level of my expectations, it would frustrate me as all get out versus I should be happy that they're helping. But if they're going to help, here's an example. If they're going to help and they're going to take care of mom and feed her and doing all that, and I walk in and there's dishes on the table and there's clutter everywhere, it's like, okay, how hard is it? And my expectation is kind of like a babysitter. A babysitter would take care of your children, but you expect them to clean up as well. When the kids go to bed, pick up all their toys and put the dishes in the dishwasher. Oh my gosh. So I struggle with that. And I get myself in trouble a lot with burning myself out and my patience. And so those are my core values and how they can go ahead and play with each other. That's why your personal values can cause frustration. And you may have to think through how to make important decisions and set boundaries for yourself, as well as maintaining relationships when you think about your core values in managing your team. I can't go in and bark at my brother because the dishes are all over the countertop and everything is, not in place, but he took the day and spent it with my mom. I can't go that way. I have to salvage that relationship and bite my tongue and just go ahead and be grateful for that or have a conversation to say, I am so grateful for you. Hey, next time, can you just throw the dishes in the dishwasher? So I have to think through that. Here's another example. If you value positivity and optimism, and right now your season isn't that way, how do you work through that? How do you work through the challenges and struggles? You can't say everything's peaches and cream or rainbows and sunshine when your loved one is like my dad was. He was terminally ill, and every day was going to take a step down. So, or if you value friendship, gatherings and volunteerings, and you can't go right now to some of the things, how is that sitting with you? For my mom, she valued socialization, and she thrived on it, and that was one of her core values. And when I was away for 6 weeks with Dennis's stem cell transplant, we didn't connect physically, and so I knew I had to go ahead and talk to her each day, and I said, "Do you wanna FaceTime each day? How would that be?" And it was great for her, and I adhered to her core values. Okay. So I want to talk about all of these because your personal values provide the groundwork to create your most authentic and purposeful life. That is such a strong statement. It can help you identify your motivations, it can help you set healthy boundaries, and then make those important life decisions. In caregiving, it can keep you grounded, healthy, and I like the word sane because sometimes this stress and overwhelm gets the best of us. What's great about it is your values aren't always going to be the same. And what's unique about it is as you change in your seasons or as things change in your life, you can shift, you can add, you can delete them at any time. Each season, I sit with myself and reassess my values, my beliefs, and my expectations. I'm right there right now with that. And one of the biggest adds to my values as a caregiver is my self-care values and really looking at what can I do for my self-value work. And I'll call these my self-values, and meaning putting value on the importance of my self-care. You have to have the core belief that your care is essential in being the best that you can be, especially during this time. When you take care of yourself physically and mentally and spiritually, you will be better. No matter what season you're in, you're going to be better. You're going to feel better. You're going to perform better. You're going to think better. And you can be an effective caregiver because you're taking care of yourself and you're seeing the value of self-care. In this caregiver life, you can find more joy and satisfaction when you have clarity about your needs and your expectations. And so as you look as you look at your look at your personal core values, ask yourself if your values affect your caregiving. And I think that's an important piece. And so, what self value will positively impact your caregiving? Oof, yeah. So, I want you to think about this first. And I thought I'm going to back up here a minute because I kind of got ahead of my screens versus that. I want you to take some time in the next day or so, or pause this video or this podcast right now and take some time and ask yourself these two questions. The first one I have on the screen here. As you look at your personal core values, whatever the values are, ask yourself if your values affect your caregiving. Yes or no, there's going to be an answer because they're going to affect you positively or they're going to affect you negatively. So you're going to want to know what your core values are. You're going to want to know what those personal values are. And so you may have to do some work about that and think about what your values are and then ask yourself, are they affecting your caregiving and how are they affecting your caregiving? And then what self values will positively impact your caregiving? And what are they for you? Because I truly believe that you can find self value in your caregiving season. And I'm going to give you some examples and that'll kind of help you spark some more interest because in 2022, I had to shift and reset my core values two times during two tough seasons. The first one being in January. Dennis had his it started in November. They discovered that his Hodgkin's lymphoma was back, and and non-Hodgkin's was there as well, and they were fighting with each other, and chemotherapy, they've done as much chemotherapy as they could. His next avenue was to go ahead and look at stem cell transplants. And so in January, then he went in for a stem cell transplant for the 6 weeks that we were there. I had to go ahead and look at my personal values, especially being away from home with my spouse with his stem cell transplant. So the organized and the committed and the dedication and the all in kind of thing were not going to fit during the 6 weeks because I didn't know what to expect. I couldn't control a lot of things. And so I had to assess, and I came up with 3. Grateful. I had to be grateful because I was away from home. I had a whole team of people helping with the home front, the dogs, the house, the not lawn care, but the snow removal, all of that. My mom was um, away from me, and I was her caregiver as well. And so I had a whole team, and then I had a team in the Milwaukee housing that I was at. So I had to be grateful for the stem cell transplant team, the doctors, the nurses, the lodging, all of the care that we were getting. So I had to focus on being grateful. The second thing is I had to focus on myself and being kind to myself. I had to focus on simplicity and rest and being okay with not performing at my highest because it was an extremely stressful and exhausting time because we didn't know what to expect. And then I had my last one was I had to say, Kathy, one of my values has to be living in the present with optimism and patience. And you know from me talking earlier that patience wasn't a strong suit for me. I didn't have control over a lot of things, and I had to just let things happen. I could be hopeful, but didn't know what the next day would hold, from Dennis's care to his health to what was happening at home, to my mom, everything. I couldn't control it. And so those core values. And then as the year went on and we, in March, he was actually home, and there was a different transition time where isolation had to be in place, safety and health had to be in place. And I was recovering from this, and he was recovering. Well, by the middle of summer, my mom's lung cancer came back, and her disease started progressing pretty fast. And then she moved into hospice care. This was hard because I just came home, like I said, and was celebrating Dennis's successful transplant, and it had to shift right away to my mom's health, and her health started failing fast, and I had to figure out my core values. Those had to shift as well. And so my core values then, after assessing, had to be the care for my mom. I had to get in care mode, compassion mode, communication mode, and listening to her needs and her wants and honoring her wishes. And so it had to be all of those things. And then I was still in this very stressed and burnt out phase. And I had to also reflect on my own love for myself and grant myself some time for myself so I could make it through this hard season. But also, I wanted the valuable time with my mom, and I wanted to be a daughter in addition to being her caregiver. And so I valued the small times that I had with her while she was awake, while she was sleeping. I was taking care of myself. And then the last one was compassion for mom, but mostly importantly, myself, allowing myself to feel, to embrace my thoughts and feelings because my mom was dying, and living in the present, knowing my mom's time would be limited. And she did pass away in October, on October 1st. And so by adjusting my core values and not living with the ones that I was always, that I grew up with, I had to shift and figure out those, or else I would be fighting with them the whole time. Now, if you're searching for your core values, I want you to think about a few things, and I have 6 steps here that will pop up on the screen or I'll talk about in the podcast, but I also want you to think about what season you're in and what's best for you right now. And and I had to take a step back, and hopefully that's a good example. But I want you to also think of the most meaningful moments in your life. What is meaningful to you? Who who were you with? What were you standing for? What were you doing? How you can define meaningful however you want it, but usually it encompasses moments where you're at peace and fulfilled with your purpose. I think about parents who are giving birth and seeing their child's first steps. You might experience it at work when you're using skills that, like I talked about, that come easy to you, or with a friend where you're a really good listener or you're a really good person to help them through something. Whatever your knack is, it's probably your core value, and you have to tell yourself, is that of joy to you? Do you enjoy that piece? The next thing is to think of the moments you feel least satisfied. It's the flip side of the coin. What things that drive you crazy, that you try to imagine the opposite, and they're the worst life's experiences, and you know that they're not your value. If you're listening, and I don't like to get into politics a lot or environmental things, but if you're with somebody that's explaining an environmental situation to you and you're totally on the other side, that's a core value to you. You might even get into an argument with you. Why were they unfulfilling to you? What were you doing? How often do you do you cringe when you see somebody behaving that way? You might feel unfulfilled at work, and because of the company's values, they might be red flags in relationships. For me, I am really very optimistic and positive, and I have learned to be that way through all of this. But I've really dug deep and found out that really is a core value to me. And when somebody is a really a downer, or they're very negative, or they're sassy, I get irritated by that. And so I know that that's a core value to me. Another thing is pay attention to what stories inspire you. When you hear news or see articles that just you're like, oh my gosh, I got to share this book page with you because this lights me up, or a behavior that you admire, or a mentor that you respect, think about why they speak to you and what it says about you. So that could be definitely a core value. And another one is figure out what makes you angry. And if you journal each day, you probably can kind of see a trend. You can learn a lot about your values by paying attention to what irritates you. Maybe it's a movie character, or a show that just rubs you the wrong way, or someone in your life upsets you about a specific thing, or you found a task frustrating. Your anchor might be rooted in the contradiction that you of your values. Sure, you're going to get angry, but you want to dig deep. Why am I angry? And if you're very organized and you're just irritated that day because you're moving and others are helping you, it's not because of the move. Most likely it's because you're an organized person and things are chaotic right now. And that's not aligning to your values. And so that might be one. And then this is a fun one. Imagine your ideal world. Imagine yourself in as a character in a movie. If you have the power to reshape your life or your world, what would it look like? Think of the services you'd like to provide or not provide, how citizens would treat each other, what activities they would partake in. Chances are your choices will reflect on your values. And then the last one to kind of think about is review your accomplishments you're most proud of. I just started this one. I just started this one because, and I'll share, I'm actually going through a core values assessment right now, but I've been writing down my accomplishments because I'm expecting too much, kind of going back to that work ethic, that why am I stressing myself out if I don't get 10 things done today, but I got 3 good things done today? But review your accomplishments. You've done a lot of things in your life. So think of the ones that fill you with pride. What did you do? What was the impact? Why those accomplishments are you or not you? And really look at, you might see some overlap in your meaningful moments here. Maybe was your college graduation one of your best days of your life? Is there more important than a really great day that you're in right now? Just kind of play with some of those events in your life and saying, what does it tell me about my values? So, yeah, let me talk about, because I've been hinting at it already. This year, 2023, is totally different for me right now. And I've been trying to figure this out. And I did an Instagram post on today about it, or Tuesday about it. And my core values are changing. My identity is changing. I'm no longer a caregiver daughter because I lost my dad in 2018. I lost my mom last year. My husband's in remission, so my caregiving journey looks very different. I retired from my corporate job of 32 and a half years, where that was, I aligned to their core values. And for working a job for 32 years, I had some strong core values when it came to my job. And so right now, my core values are different. And I'm embracing the fact that I have to figure out who the new Kathy is. And I want you to think about that. Each season you're in, you're trying to figure out who the new person is in the tough times, in the good times, in the challenging times, and in the positive times. And so I think that what I'm trying to get at is you're always evolving. I wanted to say revolving, evolving with your core values. And so this quote came to mind. And when I read this quote, I thought this really describes it. I think his name is Ed Miliband, Miliband. He says, your core values are the deeply held beliefs that authentically describe your soul. And when I think about that, authentically describes your soul in your deep held beliefs. And so I'm trying to get into my deep held beliefs and letting those bubble up now. But I'm also looking at how it's describing my soul and really figuring those out. And it is an interesting and a fun journey. Don't get me wrong. It's hard. Sometimes when you have to say no to a friend or a family member because of your deep rooted beliefs, it's hard when you have to make a hard decision to put yourself first. But those are some of the beliefs that you want to go ahead and make. And so, can your core values and beliefs be about you and your self care? I'm posing that as a question. Can your core values or one of your core values be about you and your self care? Do you value yourself enough to keep the burnout away? Yeah. Yeah. You want to think about that. To make that hard decision or to have that tough conversation because your core values are being compromised, or you're finally going to set healthy boundaries because you realize your core values are not aligning to that. And so you have to have some hard conversations. Trust me, that hard conversation with my mom to say, Mom, I'm going to be here as much as I can in your last months of your life, but I'm still trying to go ahead and heal and de-stress from the beginning of the year. I love you so much. Don't feel like I'm not here because of you. I just need some time. And I know right now that that was the best possible decision for me, but it hurt me to see my mom saying, "You can stay here. I need you here." And I'm like, "I know you need me here. That's why John and Connie and I, my brothers and sisters, are going to coordinate." I write down my beliefs and core values in my journal each day as a reminder. Because one of my core values that I know will never change is I'm always going to be grateful and optimistic and positive. I'm always going to look at that glass half full. I'm always going to appreciate and embrace my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions and listen to what they're telling me. That's rooted in me, but stand with your beliefs. If you believe something, you want to stand with them. Be your best self. Keep your promises to yourself. Or if you are not there yet and it's cloudy, allow yourself to recognize when it feels right and allow yourself grace and recognize when it doesn't feel right. It's okay to say, I don't know. I'm off and I'm angry and I'm resentful. When you're angry and resentful, you wanna find out why and dig deeper and find out, is it something that is fighting against my core values and it's battling against my thoughts and my feelings, let alone it may be. Okay. I love, if you don't know me enough, I love sharing quotes. Here's a, let's see if I have it on here once. Oh, it's coming. I don't have it. Yeah. Um, oh, I did share this one already. So, okay. I had another one, but I'll put that in my Instagram post. To end here today, I want to talk about two more statements. Self-care is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness. It's protecting your own well-being and happiness, and particularly during these periods of stress for you. And that's why I've gone through those 4 parts, because self-love and self-compassion and self-value and self-worth are so very, very important. Self-care is a practice of taking action and an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, and really going ahead and doing that. So I want to end today with self care is your own personal journey. And if somebody's a avid runner and they're talking about, oh, I want to get in shape, that's their personal journey. Your journey is going to be different in different seasons. And I know as a caregiver, you're going to feel crappy about your self care sometimes in those hard seasons. But I don't want you to look at only the physical part of it. You want to look at the emotional and mental and spiritual part of it. You might have to pull that more in hard seasons, like I did when I was at the stem cell transplant versus the active side. So that's why these 4 parts are so important. Self care is your thoughts and feelings, it's being kind to yourself, it's about growth and taking action. And today we talked about your beliefs and your purpose and who you are, because not only is it getting your heart feeling good and your body and your muscles feeling good, it's your head and your mind and your joy and your satisfaction. It is a personal path that continues for you to evolve and change, and it will in every part of your journey. And so here's to you going ahead and taking care of yourself in your own way, in your own thoughts, in your own body, and in your own mind. And that's the piece that I wanted to get across to you today. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, can you go do me a favor and give me a like or a comment or a review? Because that helps me in all of the platforms that I'm in. So thank you, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye for now.